8 years after Changi, here we are. Buhari is leaving. This is what Buhari has done in 8 years. This is what he has as his record for coming back as Nigeria's civilian president after being military head. We start from what he promised he was coming to do. He was coming to terminate corruption. He was coming to terminate insecurity. He was coming to, create recreate the economy, since everybody else was a thief and reckless, unable to do anything, had no integrity. But today, looking back, we can see very clearly that it wasn't all those things he said he was coming to do that he really came to do. He spent all the time trying to get the Fulani to overrun everybody else. We go back to what Ahmadu Bello said in 1960 in his mission statement and battle script, in which he said Nigeria should be turned into an estate of their great-grandfather, or should be an estate of their great-grandfather Uthman Fodio, and that on no account should the power equation be allowed to change, that the minorities of the north be used as willing tools and the south as a conquered territory. If we were to look with the benefit of hindsight, looking back at these 8 years, we could see that all of what Buhari came to do was to implement, to more or less operationalize, to make happen that vision of Ahmadu Bello. We saw when he threw our borders open and beckoned at his kinsmen from all over the sub-region to come, armed, and nobody stood their way, because the same Buhari was commander-in-chief of the armed forces that should have been stopping them. They came in killing, maiming, plundering, and confiscating lands in a manner that has now become a clear case of ethnic cleansing. And while all of that was going on, while it was going all over the world, telling people about climate change that has become reason for farmers and herdsmen clashing and all of that nonsense, we have seen it now that there was no farmers, herders clash. It was invasion, Fulani invasion. And the Global Terror Index was quick to pick them up as the most Fulani herdsmen, fourth most deadly terror network. So, Buhari, grand patron, life grand patron, Miyetti Allah. Miyetti Allah that takes responsibility for the, will I say, the exploits of Fulani herdsmen. So, in all, Buhari is the champion of the terror that have been unleashed in the name of Fulani herdsmen. That's one item of a score. We come to the question of corruption. Where are we with corruption now? Just last week or so, we saw the National Assembly approving, in retrospect, approving 22 trillion or so. I think it's even more than that. I think a little more was added. That 22, or whether it became 23 trillion, ways and means. What is the meaning of ways and means? Monies taken without authorization from the Federation account between Buhari and his handmaid, Godwin Emefiele, who we hear now has obtained approval for some kind of study leave. Maybe he wants to leave Nigeria before his principal goes off to Niger Republic, where he says he's heading to. But let somebody tell, Buhari has to be told that going to Niger Republic will not account for all of what was done. Somebody has to account for what was done, whether it was money that was taken recklessly from the treasury or the killings that were aided against the indigenous nationalities across the length and breadth of Nigeria by people who are known to be Fulani invading from everywhere. Security, that was the principal reason cited for bringing him to come in 2015, is now far worse. The reason we are making this broadcast today is that we saw on the front pages of the newspapers today, May 16th, 2023, where Buhari was boasting that he has laid a solid foundation that will take Nigeria to the pinnacle of the world. We consider that a gargantuan insult of our collective, of our sensibilities, of insult to us. Some may think he failed because he's incompetent. No. The main mission for which he came was to recover the land that you are all occupying and turn it into Fulani land. We saw all of what he tried to do to impose Ruga. We saw what we did with the waterway bill. We saw grazing reserve that he even tried to use the executive fiat to reopen the grazing, that is, take people's land and hand over to Fulani as colonies across the length and breadth of Nigeria. That was what he came to do. Everything else is subsidiary. Everything else is in facilitation of that main objective. And so terror, insecurity at the level of terror, because insecurity can be between him and his Lai Mohammed errand boy of a spokesman, they compel the media to report terror as a banditry, knowing the difference. Well, we pray that those people who joined in that mischief will not themselves become victims of terror. On the day they become victims of terror, let them not let them be bold enough to call it banditry, because there's a difference. Bandits can be Yoruba bandits doing mischief in Nasarawa. Bandit can be Ogoni bandits, hijacking goats in Offa. But terror, the terror we have seen, has been principally Fulani invaders pretending to be herdsmen, killing people in an ethnic cleansing campaign. Terror, motive, ethnic cleansing. And when you call it banditry, you've left the whole subject unattended, because people would then think it's a poverty, an attempt to survive by just anybody who is poor. That is a false narrative. The question of economy and then employment that will be, all over the place. We saw Ngozi Okonjo inaugurating governors that are coming, talking about the numbers that have become poorer now, multidimensional poverty, far worse than it was before Buhari came. And so Nigeria has become, under his watch, the poverty capital of the world. And when you ask them, they begin to point to the sky, that the global community is everybody else everywhere, But what are you doing about what do you have in your space? What are you doing with it? You lock down all the possibilities with constitution that make life impossible for everybody. We've become Almajiri. We saw now they've gone to seek a loan of $800 million to say they remove a subsidy. What is the meaning of subsidy? What is the meaning of subsidy in a situation where we have the capacity to refine petroleum? Labour Congress, listen, and all of those who may jump out to the street, and the Tinubu that say, oh, I will remove subsidy. None of you knows the meaning of a subsidy in the circumstance. We have 3 million barrels of crude oil we can produce. We have the capacity, if the constitutional impediment, if the constitutional shackle, if the constitutional restriction is removed, that has a refineries on the exclusive list. If that impediment does not exist, there are all kinds of people, there are hundreds, if not thousands of people who will be refining this product so that there is availability, and we can even sell and add value and create employment at home. You lock down that capacity with your constitution. Refineries are on the exclusive list. That's the only reason we don't have petroleum, and there's nothing that will solve that problem, not any subsidy. What is the meaning of subsidy? You create an inefficiency. You create an impossibility. You create a bottleneck, and then you summon the naira to go and start paying in dollar what you could have been producing and exporting and bringing in dollar. And so if you had 8 years to solve this problem, with all of the nonsense that was said before, was it not the Buhari that told us that subsidy is a scam before he came? As he's living, we are paying several times higher than we paid before. And now they say they want to go to borrow $800 million as to add to palliatives. Have we become an Nigerian economy? Look at what they say they want to do with $800 million to give to, you don't have a database. You don't even know where citizens are. So on what database, on what, by what register are you going to distribute $800 million to 50? How do you select the 50 million people that are poorer than others? Or households, whatever. We saw it happen in COVID-19, where I don't know how to describe those ministers, both of finance and of women and youth affairs, that claimed they were feeding school children in course of the lockdown with billions and billions and billions. And it was all a matter of, oh, we sent money to people. So it's all sham. It's all a scam. $800 million, that's about, let's call it 650, almost 700 billion naira that somebody is going to borrow on our behalf to share out to people we will never be able to identify as the palliative that will then allow them to throw. Dangote refinery is ready. They are all, desperately looking for how to introduce the product so that all of us can go back to sleep and rejoice that our crude oil have been hijacked from us by that constitution and its exclusive list. And then the monopoly, the monopoly of a license is granted to a Fulani man to be the one to process all the crude oil of us will use. That's what is going on. And so all of that plan can carry on, but the reality is that nobody's going to take $1 of World Bank loan under that heading. The National Assembly should hear it. The Tinubu that was boasting that he will remove subsidy, we have to have a full debate on what subsidy means in the circumstance. If we do not, the labor union, what's the LNC and NUPENG and all the TUC kind of people, if you will not come forward for us to insist that that constitution that puts refineries on the exclusive list will have to be dismantled. If you do not want to partake of that, and every day you come and cry about subsidy that is to be removed, you are just deceiving yourself. The cure to the question of subsidy is to make product available locally. The crude is here. The capacity to refine is here. The only thing standing between that capacity and the actual refining is the constitution that puts refineries on the exclusive list. And there's no other solution that can be found. It's not the monopoly granted Dangote that will become the answer to that situation. Before you begin to stand around on the street and dance in the name of protest. So, everything is worse. And so, when Buhari is talking about the foundation he has laid that will now take Nigeria to high heavens, you failed woefully with the economy, failed woefully with the security, failed much more woefully with the question of corruption that is now being celebrated everywhere. Have we ever had and when we begin to look at the corruption going on now, it begins to remind us of the corruption that happened when Buhari was oil minister under Osinbajo military headship of Nigeria. 2.8 billion naira grew wings and flew. The same Buhari, when he became head of state, we saw the case about 53 suitcases in which money was being changed the same way we saw here happening now with Mefele. Money was being changed, and then somehow 53 suitcases found their way containing money. under his watch? What corruption can be worse than that? We saw when he went to be PTF chairman, when Abacha concessioned the governance to him. Buhari is not corrupt, but he is always the confidant of the most corrupt. We saw what happened in PTF. Has it been matched since after then in terms of corruption that was walking on the streets? Afri project. And now we see this 22 trillion ways and means between him and Emefiele. $30 billion taken without authorization. And we saw Lawan and all of those gathered in the National Assembly just approving it as if we're talking about 30 million naira. We're talking about $30 billion. Ways and means. And then somebody says he's going to rest in Niger if he cannot find rest in Katsina. Somebody has to account for all of what went wrong. I think as we march towards May 29, whatever is going to happen, it is a question of setting the record straight. Buhari came for a certain purpose, which we have outlined. He spent all the 8 years trying to achieve that purpose. If not for the forces of heaven that aided us to block him from wiping off the owners of Nigeria to hand the lands to the Fulani, the story would have been the same. But to now be boasting that corruption is cured, and security is cured, and economy is cured, that is an insult that will not be tolerated. Somebody should pay attention and not compound his situation. We stop there.